Hello, my friend. Welcome back. I'm really glad you're here with me today. This is English with Thomas, a quiet place. A human place where we don't rush, where we don't perform, and where English is not something we chase, but something we slowly live inside. Today, I want to talk about something delicate, something powerful, and something many of us have experienced often without fully understanding it at the time. The moment you went silent, they began to unravel. Not because you shouted, not because you argued, not because you fought, but because you stopped explaining yourself. You stopped reacting. You stopped filling the space with words. Silence can be frightening, and silence can be honest. Let's explore this together gently, patiently through story, reflection, and language you can feel, not just memorize. I want you to settle into your chair, your bed, or wherever you are right now. Take one slow breath. You don't need to understand every word. You don't need to repeat everything perfectly. Just listen. Let the language arrive naturally. There was a time in my life when I believed that being understood required constant effort. If someone misunderstood me, I explained again. If they questioned my intention, I clarified. If they felt uncomfortable, I softened my words. I thought this was kindness, and sometimes it was, but there was another layer to it, a quieter truth I didn't see yet. I was afraid of silence. I was afraid of what would happen if I stopped managing the emotional space between myself and others. One evening, I remember sitting across from someone I cared deeply about. We were in a small cafe, the kind where the light is warm but slightly dim, where conversations feel private even when other people are nearby. They were speaking quickly, explaining their feelings, justifying their behavior, asking questions not to understand, but to defend. Normally, I would have responded immediately. I would have filled the gap. I would have reassured them. But that night, something inside me was tired, not angry, not resentful, just tired. So I listened, and when they finished speaking, I didn't rush to reply. I stayed silent. At first, the silence felt gentle, almost peaceful. Then it changed. They shifted in their seat. They looked away. They laughed nervously, and then, slowly, they began to unravel. They spoke again louder this time. They repeated themselves. They asked, "Why aren't you saying anything?" I remember thinking very clearly, I'm not being silent to punish you. I'm being silent to tell the truth, because the truth was simple. I had nothing more to explain. Let me say that again. Slowly, I had nothing more to explain. Repeat after me, softly, in your own voice. I have nothing more to explain. Good. Say it again, but slower. I have nothing more to explain. This phrase is not aggressive. It is not cold. It is complete. Many of us believe that communication means constant speaking, but sometimes real communication begins when we stop talking. When you stop explaining, something interesting happens. People are forced to sit with themselves, with their assumptions, with their expectations, and not everyone knows how to do that. Silence removes the mirror we hold up for others. Without our words, they are left alone with their own reflection. That can be uncomfortable. In the days that followed that evening, I noticed a shift. Messages became shorter. Questions became sharper. The emotional balance changed. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle. But subtle changes often reveal the deepest truths. I realized that my constant explaining had been doing emotional labor for both of us. When I stopped, the system could no longer hold itself together, and so it began to unravel. Let's pause for a moment, not a pause in the audio, but a pause inside you. Think about a time when you stopped reacting, when you didn't argue, when you didn't defend yourself. Just notice what comes up. You don't need to share it. Just observe. Now, let's look at some language from this experience. When I say, they began to unravel, what does that mean? To unravel means to come apart slowly, like a sweater with a loose thread. Pull one thread, and the structure weakens. We often use unravel to describe emotions, plans, or relationships that lose stability. For example, after the truth came out, everything began to unravel. When she stopped trying to control the situation, the tension unraveled. Try saying this sentence with me. Things began to unravel. Again, slowly. Things began to unravel. Very good. Notice how gentle the phrase is. It doesn't accuse, it observes. This is important. English, when used with awareness, allows us to describe emotional reality without violence, without blame. And that's what we're practicing here. Not just English, but emotional clarity. Sometimes I wonder how many arguments in our lives are really about fear of silence. We fill the space because silence feels like rejection, or danger, or abandonment. But silence can also be respect, boundaries, truth. Another memory comes to me now, years later. Different place, different people. I was teaching a small group of adults, not beginners, people who already knew English, but didn't trust themselves in it. One student spoke beautifully, but every sentence ended with apology. Sorry, my English is bad. Sorry, I don't know if this is right. Sorry, sorry, sorry. One day, after she finished speaking, I didn't correct her. I didn't praise her. I didn't rush in. I simply smiled and stayed silent. She looked nervous at first, then confused. Then she said quietly, "Is it okay?" I nodded, and something changed in her face. She didn't need reassurance. She needed space to believe herself. Silence gave her that space. Let's work with a phrase that carries this meaning. It's okay. Repeat after me. It's okay. Now try this one. You don't need to explain. Again, slowly. You don't need to explain. These phrases are simple but emotionally advanced. They communicate safety without control. When you stop explaining, you are not withdrawing love. You are withdrawing performance. And sometimes, people depended on that performance more than they depended on the real connection. That's when unraveling begins. I want to be very clear here. Silence is not always the answer. Avoidance is not wisdom. Withdrawal is not healing. But conscious silence, chosen silence, is different. It says, I trust reality. I trust you to meet yourself. I trust myself enough not to over-translate my soul. Let me ask you something gently. Have you ever felt exhausted after explaining yourself too much? Not tired of talking, tired of being misunderstood, even after speaking? That exhaustion is not from language. It is from misalignment. And sometimes, silence is the most aligned response. Let's practice describing this feeling in English. Try this sentence. I felt tired of explaining myself. Repeat it. Good. Now try. I didn't know how else to say it. Excellent. Notice how these sentences don't blame anyone. They honor your experience. Language like this helps us speak honestly without hard edges. When you went silent, they began to unravel not because you were cruel, but because the structure relied on your constant presence. And that's a painful realization for many of us. I remember feeling guilty at first. I thought, am I being cold? Am I being distant? But over time, I understood something important. If a relationship cannot survive honesty, it was surviving performance. And performance is exhausting. Silence removes the stage. Another story comes to mind. A long walk, early morning, city still waking up. I passed a couple arguing quietly near a bus stop. Their words were sharp but controlled. Then one of them stopped talking. The other continued explaining, persuading, defending, and when there was no response, their voice changed. Not louder, softer. And then they said something real, something unscripted. That's the power of silence. It invites truth, not always comfortable truth, but real truth. Let's look at another useful phrase. When I stopped reacting. Repeat. When I stopped reacting. This phrase is powerful because it shifts agency back to you. Not when they did something, but when I stopped reacting. That's awareness. English allows us to frame our experience in ways that restore dignity. And dignity is essential in both language learning and life. You are not behind. You are not slow. You are not broken. You are learning to listen to English and to yourself. Sometimes I think language learning is really about learning when to speak and when not to. Children learn this naturally. Adults have to relearn it. We are taught that silence is weakness, but often silence is maturity. There is a kind of silence that says, I know who I am. And when that silence enters a space that depended on your uncertainty, things begin to shake. They begin to unravel. Not because you changed, but because you stopped pretending. Let's do one more small practice. Say this sentence with me. I didn't feel the need to respond. Again. I didn't feel the need to respond. This sentence is calm. It doesn't escalate. It doesn't defend. It simply states truth. And truth, when spoken or unspoken, reorganizes relationships. If you are listening to this while learning English, I want you to understand something deeply. You do not need to fill every silence with words to be fluent. Fluency is not speed. Fluency is presence. When you choose words slowly, intentionally, you speak with authority, even in silence. And that is something no textbook teaches. As we come closer to the end of this journey today, I want to leave you with a final reflection. Sometimes, people only understand your value when you stop proving it. Sometimes, systems only reveal their weakness when you stop holding them together. And sometimes, your silence is not absence, it is alignment. If something unraveled when you went quiet, maybe it was already fragile, and maybe your silence was not the cause but the mirror. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to speak less. You are allowed to let English and life meet you halfway. You are not just learning English. You are learning how to notice, how to breathe, how to trust yourself. And that is real fluency. Thank you for being here with me today. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself. And before we part, I want to stay with you just a little longer, because silence does not end when the conversation ends. Silence continues to work inside us. Long after the words are gone, there is often a strange moment after you choose not to explain anymore. At first, you feel empty, as if you forgot something important, as if you were supposed to say one more sentence, one more clarification, one more apology. That feeling can be uncomfortable. Your mind may whisper, maybe I should have said more. Maybe they misunderstood me. Maybe I was too quiet. If you have ever felt this, you are not alone. This is the moment when old habits try to return. Habits built from years of adapting, smoothing, translating yourself for others. But if you stay with the silence gently, patiently, something else appears. Relief. Not dramatic relief, not joy, but a quiet sense of alignment. Your body relaxes first. Your shoulders drop. Your breathing slows, and then your thoughts become clearer. You realize you did not abandon yourself. You protected yourself. Let's put that into English together. Repeat after me. I protected myself. Again, slowly. I protected myself. This sentence matters. Many learners struggle to express self-respect in English because they believe English must sound strong to be valid. But real strength often sounds calm. Now try this. I chose not to explain. Good. Notice the verb chose. Not I couldn't. Not I didn't know how. I chose. Choice restores power, and language that restores power changes how you see yourself. Sometimes, after silence, people return. They speak differently. They listen more. Sometimes they don't, and that outcome tells you something important, not about your worth, but about the structure of the relationship. When someone only feels stable when you are explaining yourself, comforting them, adjusting your truth, that stability was borrowed. Silence returns ownership. Let me share one last quiet image with you. Imagine a room where music has been playing for a long time. Everyone is used to it. They talk over it. They move with it. Then suddenly, the music stops. At first, it feels awkward. People shift. They cough. They notice things they didn't hear before. The room didn't break. The soundscape changed. Your silence is like that. It changes the emotional sound of a space, and not everyone knows how to listen when the music stops. That is not your responsibility, introvert. As an English learner, you may feel pressure to always perform, to always show improvement, to always sound confident. But you are allowed to be quiet while you grow. You are allowed to pause before you speak. You are allowed to say less and mean more. English is not just a tool for communication. It is a mirror. The way you use English reflects how you treat yourself. So speak when it feels true. Be silent when it feels honest. Both are part of fluency. If today's episode touched something inside you, let it sit there. You don't need to analyze it. You don't need to fix it. Just notice. That is enough. Thank you for sharing this quiet space with me. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself. And even after those words, even after what feels like an ending, there is still something gentle unfolding. Because silence does not arrive once and disappear. It comes in waves. It teaches slowly. There may be moments, days later, when you replay the scene in your mind. You remember the look on their face, the way the air felt heavier. The moment you decided not to speak, your mind may ask again, was I right? Should I have said more? These questions are natural. They do not mean you failed. They mean you are learning discernment. Let's name that in English. Repeat after me. I'm learning to trust my judgment. Again, slowly. I'm learning to trust my judgment. This sentence is not loud. It does not convince anyone else. It convinces you. Sometimes silence teaches us something unexpected that we were never asking for too much. We were asking the wrong people. And when we stop explaining, that truth becomes visible. There is a subtle grief in that realization. Not the kind that makes you cry loudly, but the kind that sits quietly in the chest. It is the grief of seeing clearly. And clarity, while peaceful, can be sad at first. You might feel distance where there used to be noise, space where there used to be tension. This is not emptiness. This is room. Room for relationships that do not require performance. Room for conversations that do not drain you. Room for English that sounds like you, not like fear. Let's practice a sentence for this feeling. I need more space. Say it gently. I need more space. Now try. This feels quieter but healthier. Good. These are sentences you can use not only in English, but in life. As you continue learning, you may notice that your English becomes calmer too. Your sentences become simpler. Your pauses become longer. This is not regression. This is integration. You are no longer trying to impress the language. You are letting it serve you. And that is when English becomes a companion, not a test. There will be people who misunderstand your silence. They may call it distance. They may call it coldness. But you know the truth. Silence is not the absence of care. It is the presence of boundaries. And boundaries are a form of respect for yourself and for others. If someone cannot meet you there, that is information. Painful information, perhaps, but honest. And honesty, even when quiet, is a gift. As we sit together in these final moments, I want you to remember this. You are allowed to take up space with words, and you are allowed to take up space without them. Both are valid. Both are fluent. Learning English is not about becoming louder. It is about becoming clearer, and clarity often arrives through silence first. Carry that with you today, into your conversations, into your learning, into the way you speak to yourself. This quiet strength, it will stay with you. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself. And even now, as you listen to my voice, there may be a quiet place opening inside you, not empty, not lonely, just still. Stillness is often misunderstood. People think it means nothing is happening. But stillness is where understanding settles. When you stop explaining, when you stop reacting, when you stop filling every space with words, you begin to hear something else, your own inner language. The way you talk to yourself, the way your body responds to truth, the way your breath changes when you are no longer performing. This is where learning becomes personal. You may notice that after choosing silence, your words, when they do come, feel more precise. You speak less, but you mean more. You listen more, but you absorb less noise. This is maturity in language, not advanced vocabulary, not perfect pronunciation, but intention. Let's put that into a sentence together. I speak with intention. Repeat it. I speak with intention. Now try this one. I don't rush my words. Good. These sentences are not about English alone. They are about how you exist in the world. Many learners feel pressure to always respond quickly, to prove understanding, to show fluency. But fluency is not speed. Fluency is knowing when to speak and when silence communicates more honestly. There is a deep confidence that grows when you realize you do not need to rush, not in conversation, not in learning, not in life. And when you carry that confidence quietly, people feel it. They may not name it, they may not understand it, but they respond to it. Because calm presence changes the emotional temperature of a room. Your silence, when grounded, becomes a signal. It says, I am here. I am listening. I am not afraid of space. And that kind of silence does not push people away. It invites them to meet you more honestly if they are ready. As you continue learning English, remember this. You are not training your mouth alone. You are training awareness. Every sentence you speak is a choice. Every pause is also a choice, and both shape your voice. Let English grow with you, not ahead of you, not behind you. Let it reflect who you are becoming. Calmer, clearer, more trusting of yourself. Thank you for staying in this quiet moment with me. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself. And as this quiet space continues, I want to speak to something very human. something many of us feel but rarely name. After silence, there is often loneliness, not because you are alone, but because you are no longer surrounded by noise that once distracted you from yourself. When the explaining stops, when the reacting ends, you may notice who remains and who slowly fades. That noticing can be painful. It can feel like loss, but it is also information, and information, when received gently, leads to wisdom. There is a sentence I return to often in moments like this. Let's say it together. I'm learning who I don't have to be. Again, slowly. I'm learning who I don't have to be. This sentence creates space. It removes pressure. It allows you to grow without apology. Silence teaches us that not everyone is meant to walk with us forever. Some people walk with the version of us that explained too much, adapted too much, stayed too quiet inside while speaking constantly outside. When that version rests, the connection changes. That is not failure. That is evolution. And language evolves with you. You may notice that your English begins to sound simpler but stronger. You choose words that feel true, not impressive. You allow pauses instead of filling them with doubt. This is not loss of fluency. This is ownership of voice. Let's practice one more sentence that carries this feeling. I don't need to prove myself. Repeat it. I don't need to prove myself. Hold that sentence for a moment, because when you stop proving, you start being, and being is enough. You are enough even when you are quiet, even when you are learning, even when your words come slowly. Silence is not the end of your story. It is the place where the story becomes honest. Carry that honesty into your English, into your conversations, into the way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. You are doing better than you think. Thank you for staying with me all the way to this moment. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself. And even now, after so many words, I want you to notice something. Nothing is being asked of you. You do not need to answer. You do not need to react. You do not need to understand everything perfectly. You are simply here. That, in itself, is a form of listening many people never learn. Silence teaches patience, not the kind of patience that waits for reward, but the kind that allows reality to unfold without interference. When you stop explaining, time slows down. You begin to see patterns you missed before. You begin to feel when something is right and when it is not. This is not intuition appearing suddenly. This is intuition you finally had space to hear. Let's give language to that. Repeat after me. I noticed how it really felt. Again, I noticed how it really felt. This sentence matters because it places you back inside your experience, not above it. Not outside it, inside. Many people speak English as if they are constantly outside themselves, translating, adjusting, performing. But the most natural English comes from presence, from being inside your own moment. You may find that after choosing silence, your relationships reorganize themselves. Some grow quieter but deeper. Some become distant. Some end without dramatic closure. And while that can hurt, it also simplifies your emotional world. Less noise, less confusion, more truth. Truth does not always arrive with comfort, but it arrives with clarity. And clarity brings peace not immediately, but steadily. As an English learner, clarity is more valuable than confidence. Confidence can be borrowed. Clarity must be earned. And you earn it by listening to language, to life, to yourself. If there is one thing I hope you take from this time together, it is this. You do not owe constant explanation to be worthy of understanding. You do not owe constant speech to be present, and you do not owe performance to be accepted. Your voice matters even when it is quiet, especially when it is quiet. Let that truth walk with you after this episode ends, into your next conversation, into your next sentence, into the moments when you feel the urge to explain and choose, instead to breathe. This is not silence as disappearance. This is silence as grounding. Thank you for listening with such care. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself. Thank you for listening, for staying present, for allowing this quiet journey to reach its natural close. There is nothing more you need to do right now, nothing to remember perfectly, nothing to repeat unless it feels right. Just carry the feeling of this moment with you. A little more space inside, a little more trust in your own pace, a little more comfort with silence and with your voice. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself.